While we're waiting, we gotta wish John a happy birthday. He's a Valentine's Day baby, I learned.
I should have kept
With a
quiet.
twin. With a twin. I'm glad you shared it. I think that's fantastic. Happy birthday again.
Happy birthday, Jack.
Thank you.
Happy birthday, Jack.
Happy birthday, Jack.
Birthday.
God, thank you.
So you thought you were gonna duck that, you know?
There you go. I don't know. The secret's out now.
Secret's out.
Yeah.
Do we know where Dave is? Mike? Do we know where Dave is?
Nope, I don't see him on yet.
No.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Sue.
So
Hey, Sue.
Happy birthday, Jack.
Thank you, Sue.
Well, why don't we get started? The meeting is called to order at 7:01. And can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag? Sue, can you lead us, please?
I pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag
of the
of the
United
United States of America
and
and to the republic,
States, one
one nation,
under
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty
with liberty,
Justice for all.
justice for all.
Thank you. Clerk's report, Doreen?
I don't have a clerk's report this evening. Everyone should have got their addendum. I'm sorry, everyone should have got their revised addendum. That's really the only thing I had to offer.
Okay. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda, please?
Make a motion.
I'll
Jack,
second.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. I have a motion to approve the minutes for January 13 and January 19 meetings.
I'll approve it.
Okay, who seconded? Who did?
I'll
Would
second.
you get-
Okay. Sue and Jen? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Presentations. Mike?
Yep, so tonight we have our first presentation, our monthly standing presentation from Campus Construction. So Andrew is going to give us the update for this month. And Andrew, are you able to share your screen or do you need?
I'm going to attempt to.
Okay.
I'm going to attempt to. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening, Andy.
See here. I got host disabled participant screen sharing.
All right, we'll see if Amanda can give you rights to screen share.
Andrew, you're a co-host, so you should be able to share your screen now.
There we go. Are you guys seeing the presentation?
We got it.
Yeah,
All
got it.
right. All right, let me see if I can start the slideshow.
All the way to the left, it says from the beginning.
Yep.
Yep.
You guys seeing it on the full screen now?
Yes.
All right, perfect. All right, so January's update. I apologize, you guys have to listen to me. Usually it's Alex. We are working, I talked with Sue and Mike earlier this month, along with our project executive. We are working to phase him out of the Clyde project and move him on to another one. He was on site today. He's on site a couple days a week, still working with me and the rest of our staff. But fortunately for you guys, you got me. All right, so let's start out with the pool exterior. So as everybody's aware, when you pull into the middle school, high school, one of the first things you see is this big tent structure in front of where the pool addition is. This is a kind of a look inside of that area and what you'd see behind it. So the masons have started brickwork on the exterior facade. Now that work followed, you'll see in these photos, that green material, that's your fluid applied air barrier. On top of that air barrier, you get insulation and then your brick. And then you can see the large openings. Those are going to be your glass storefront, letting in a lot of natural light into the new pool addition. On the interior of the pool, so if you were standing at that window wall looking into the area, you'd see these two locations. Over the last month, we poured a lot of concrete in the pool area. So when you walk in there now, you can walk all the way around the pool on top of the slab on grade. The slab on grade is shown in the photo on the right-hand side. And then there's a topping slab over the top of the basement where the bleachers will eventually sit, and that's shown on the left-hand side. That red material you're seeing in the photo is a bonding agent. It helps to adhere the topping slab into the slab beneath it. And then you get your welded wire mesh with fiber mesh as well inside the concrete. Again, all that concrete is placed. What's shown in these photos is the preparatory process leading up to the placement of the concrete itself. Go to the next slide. So adjacent to the pool areas, the cafeteria addition. Over the last month or so, we've really hit, you'll see that they're really starting to take shape as far as looking like finished spaces. With the ceilings, with the ceiling grid in for the most part, needing to drop border tiles and field tiles at this point. You'll see in the photo on the left, the serving area with a center skylight, and then area off to the left-hand side of the photo. Those two areas receive a wood grill ceiling with pendant light fixtures to give it a more ornate look and break up the drop ceilings. Now, in these two areas, you'll see staged electrical supplies. And that's really the main focus that we focused on over the last month here in the cafeteria, is finalizing push buttons and motor controls for the overhead doors, working on final hookups for the food service equipment in the kitchen area. They've started, you see in the photos in the grid ceilings, they've got their final lighting installed. So a lot of kind of behind the scenes finish work, if you will, that you'll see from the MEP trades. Over the next month, what we'll be starting to see is on this slab, there's a moisture mitigation process that has to take place. The material is looking to show up next week. That's about a 5 to 6 day process. After that, the terrazzo work will start to begin. And the terrazzo process from beginning to end. So when they go in and they sandblast the floor, to putting the moisture mitigation down, to setting their sluiter strip and placing the terrazzo material itself, is a 6-week duration. So over the next month, you'll really see the entire terrazzo process really take form and transition this space into what you'll see as a finished product. We take for granted, but over the last month, we were able to do. Oh, am I still here? Or did I lose my voice?
Yeah, you're here.
Okay, well, over the last month, what we were able to do was start up the new boilers with Wiesmann, the manufacturer. So currently, our middle school, high school is operating off of our brand new boilers, not our existing ones in the old boiler room. And those are shown here in the photo on the left. New pumps were also started up, and those are shown in the photo on the right. Both successful startups. More mechanicals, you'll see in the photo on the left here. This is our pool equipment room down in the new basement. And then on the right, you'll see a portion of the mezzanine above the locker rooms. As recent as this past Monday, we did startups. The unit shown in the photo on the right is the energy recovery unit that serves the locker rooms. We've also started up the unit that serves the fitness center as well, with the unit that serves the cafeteria to follow next, followed by the dehumidification unit for the pool area. As far as fitness center goes, I didn't have a photo in the slide of it, but today the corridor in front of the fitness center was being painted. They started hanging the wall grid for the ceiling yesterday. They'll start the rest of the ceiling grid in that corridor later this week. They'll drop lights in that ceiling, followed by the rest of the MEP rough-ins. And they'll work their way out of that corridor. Last thing that'll go in is the floor tile. Any questions?
Anybody have any questions? Okay, seeing none. Thank you very much, Andrew. Looks like-
Andrew, before you go, I just want to give a public shout out and thank you to Alex Schrader for his work on our project. He's been here for some time. I know he's moving on to another project as projects finish up, new projects begin, and staff is moves accordingly. So we really appreciate having him as a local guy, a graduate of Clyde-Savannah. We were really proud to have him working on our project, and we wish him the best of luck. Again, we were super proud to have him on board. So if you could give him and extend that gratitude on behalf of the board and the district, we really appreciate that.
Will do, Mike. Appreciate it. I'll let him know first thing in the morning. I'm gonna miss him. He's an asset. I'm sad I'm losing.
That.
Okay, thank you. Susan, budget update?
Yes, I'm going to attempt to share my screen now for a presentation, so bear with me for a moment. It says host disabled participant screen sharing. So if Amanda could allow me to do that.
I just made you a co-host, so you should be able to share now.
Okay, thank you. Okay, is everyone seeing Clyde-Savannah Central School District budget update on their screen?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, so tonight I'm going to talk to you about our revenues and the executive budget proposal that came through in January, which has been difficult to decipher at best. So I started with a quote. Brian Chechnicki is our new executive director at the Association of School Business Officials. And his quote was that this proposal is one of the most complicated and convoluted state aid proposals, and that we have serious concerns that the proposed budget will have long-term negative implications. So I tried to do a comparison on this slide, but the way the governor presented the aid package was difficult to compare with the previous year because he changed it so drastically. So I highlighted in purple the new things, or one old thing and 3 new things that he had in his proposal. You will see that our foundation aid is remaining flat. Our community schools set aside is the same, as well as universal pre-K. And then our high cost excess cost aid is just slightly different. And our building aid, which is listed here, is not updated with our latest figures. We filed our final cost reports for the elementary school in November, and they pulled data for the runs prior to that. So this does not reflect the true building aid that we will be receiving next year, as well as the aid on the project that's going to be finishing up shortly. We will be getting aid on that as well. So that building aid figure for 21-22 is very low. The new things, services aid, and let me go to the next slide and I can show you more what they are. So services aid, they're also referring to that as a block grant, and it combines our individual expense-based aids. For example, Boces aid, textbook, software, library materials, computer hardware, and transportation aid. So it groups them all together, and it would freeze them at this year's level for the future. So things like textbook, software, library materials, and computer, the technology aid, it would be okay for them to do that because they're actually allocated based on enrollment, and it's a certain dollar amount per student for each one of those types of aids. But the Boces aid and the transportation aid are very concerning for us because currently they're based on, we get aid the following year on how much we spent the year before. If it's frozen at this year's levels and is increased by, say, cost of living allowance or something, we're not getting truly aided on what we've spent in the previous year. So it's very concerning that those aids are grouped in there. We actually get aid on most of our transportation, and which is mandated. We have to transport students, and it's rare that they fund those mandates, and this is one that they do. And if Boces aid is going to be frozen at a lower level, schools, there will be not a great incentive for the use of Boces for shared services, which is also a concern. And then aid will be less predictable because right now we know how much we spent last year, so we know how much we're going to get the following year in those aids. And if it's at the mercy of the state, then we'll never know how much aid we're going to get, kind of like foundation aid. So that's the problem with the executive budget. The other thing that was new with the governor's proposal was the local district funding adjustment. Now I'll go back up to the top. The pandemic adjustment was for this current year. That was the CARES Act restoration. So if you remember, they took $284,981 away from us, and then they added it back into the calculation with the CARES Act funds. So those are funds that we had to apply for. We applied last summer, and then they changed the rules, and they asked us all to submit a required revised application in the fall. Originally, we weren't we didn't need to share that pot of money with private schools, with students that attend. We have students that attend private schools, and for certain funding, for our grant funding, for example, title funds, we have to share those with the private schools. Originally, we didn't have to, then they changed it and said we did have to. So we revised the application to share with the private schools, and which means the district won't get that entire 284,981 because we have to give a portion of it to the private schools. And we applied and we have not yet received those funds. So they're just starting to pay them out or approve the applications, if you will. There's one district in Wayne County that has had partially approved funding for the CARES Act, but no one else has received approval for those funds yet. For next year, they subtracted $850,672, which they said will be restored with stimulus funds that were passed by the federal government in December. So how they calculated that amount was they used it, they took it from our STAR. STAR has never been a part of the state aid projections. If you recall, the STAR program is a reduction on your property assessment of $30,000 for basic and $60,000 for enhanced if you're over 65. And you pay less taxes. The taxpayer pays less because their assessment is reduced. The STAR program is moving to a credit-based program where if you buy a new property, you have to pay the full tax and then the state will send you a check. So they're encouraging people to move from the assessment reduction to the credit, and they'll give you a little bit more. That would mean that if they did that permanently, everyone would have to pay their full tax bill up front and get a check from the state. That would affect a lot of people right now because they're counting on that reduced assessment to have a lower tax bill when it comes due. We will have to apply for these funds as well. They haven't told us what we can use them for. That we received a notice from the state today that says they won't be telling us what we can use them for until the budget is passed. And the state budget is usually supposed to be passed by April 1st. And then they'll come out with guidance on what we can use this $850,000 for, but there will be strings attached. We will have to use it for something specific and that's unknown at this time. And they also told us that this pot of money we will not have to share with private schools. It's very complicated. So I tried to do this comparison, which looks more like what you've seen in the past. I've broken it out by, took all those aids that they consolidated and had a spreadsheet to break them apart. And it appears like we're getting some additional aid this year. But that's because transportation aid is overstated and the stimulus and the CARES Act restoration, they kind of cancel each other out. Looking at this, the most important thing to see is that the building aid is understated. We will be getting over $3 million in building aid this coming year, but we also have an additional $3 million worth of debt, so that they're just going to cancel each other out. So while we can share this information now, it's going to change. This is our debt service. Current year, we owed on the project and former projects $2,829,993. We received $2.2 million worth of building aid, and we did an interfund transfer from the debt service fund to make up the difference so that there was no local tax impact on our capital projects. For 21-22, you'll see that debt service is increasing, and we don't have the funds in our debt service fund anymore to do any transfers. So, but the building aid will offset that debt service, that new debt service. We will be taking this project and closing it out. And right now we've been funding it through bands, which are bond anticipation notes, which are kind of like building loans. And we will be going to permanent financing in June for our project. So that's why we will be getting a full year of aid next year, but we also will have increased debt service payments. But because the aid's a little bit more than the debt payments, there will be no local tax impact on the projects. Our tax levy limit, this is the preliminary calculation. I'm not showing any increase for next year, so you can see what we could increase it to going through the calculation. The first arrow is the tax base growth factor. The tax base growth factor is growth in the community. So if there's new building, if there's increased assessments, whatever brings the base up greater in number is where that calculation comes in, and it's provided to us by New York State Tax and Finance. And then we add in last year's pilots and deduct down lower this year's pilots, which are almost a wash. There's a little bit more pilot revenue expected to come in next year, but not a ton. And then that next arrow is the allowable levy growth factor, which is the inflation factor, which was very low this past year. So this is where your 2% tax cap comes in. It could be up to 2%, but this year it's obviously much lower than that. So there's not a lot of growth there for the inflation factor. We have some carryover because we haven't levied to our maximum over the past several years. And so, and then if you go down to the exemptions, we have no exemptions because the most common exemption in there is the capital expenditures, but because our debt service is less than our aid, we don't have any capital expenditures, and the ERS and TRS contributions are not going up by more than 2%. So we have no exemptions. So without needing a supermajority, the district could levy 4.08 or 4.09 with rounding % increase in the tax levy. Looking at prior history, the levies over the years, the dollar amounts, over 5 years, the levy's only gone up 1.9%. 1%, the total dollar amount for a 1% increase is $50,647. If you had levied to the max over those same 5 years, the levy, the percent would have gone up 13.59%, which is over $500,000. So there's been $500,000 left on the table over the past 5 years because we've kept the tax rate, the tax levy lower than we could have made it. Other factors, we have a final number for the teachers' retirement system. It's going from 9.53% of wages to 9.8% of wages. ERS, the employees' retirement system, is going from 14.6% of wages to 16.2%. We've been told to budget a 10% increase in health insurance premiums. I have a meeting tomorrow that will finalize that figure, and we're hoping that it's going to be less. And then we are also undergoing negotiations with our 4 bargaining units, which will also affect our expenditures. So very preliminary estimated revenues are shown in the top box here. For 2021, we budgeted 21,191,705, and for 21-22, the current estimate is 22,605,021, and most of that increase is due to our increased state aid. I did put the increase for the building aid in there because that is what is expected on the next state aid calculation that they send to us. You will see in the pie chart down below that our state aid is 75% of our estimated revenues. It's a lot, and we really count on it. So the way that they've presented it to us this year has made it very difficult to calculate what exactly we're going to receive. Next steps for the budget, we're going to finalize our Boces and Edutech budgets, our program and staffing, and then we wait for the legislative budget. Typically, the legislators give us more aid than the governor proposes. That's happened for the past several years, and we're hoping that that will continue. There's been a lot of testimony happening in Albany because no one is happy with the way the state aid proposal was rolled out. And so there's been a lot of chatter. If you look, the New York State School Boards Association has published several papers and news articles about the state aid proposal. And I would, advise you to check those out and read them because they're very interesting and it states their position. And so we're waiting for that. And then we'll have to decide the use of fund balance and reserves to balance our budget and determine the actual levy. Like I said, we can go up to 4.09%, but it's up to the board to decide how much they want that to be. Any questions?
How can we finalize the BOCES budget if we don't know if we're gonna be getting the aid back from it?
Well, we have certain things that we always, we have our special education programs, which are mostly, that's our largest part of our BOCES, that and our technology. So we will probably, the way I would advise us to budget is to do it as we normally do. Because the governor proposed consolidating these aids last year and the legislature did not allow him to do it. I suspect if they allow him to do anything, they will allow him to consolidate those ones I was talking about that are based on a per student amount. And hopefully he will leave BOCES and transportation alone, or they will insist that those are separated out. But we'll have to budget as we normally do for BOCES and see what happens.
Susan, I have just a question regarding STAR. Do I understand you're saying is that just suggesting that we would have to pay tax on the full value of our house assessment?
Right. And then you would get a check for the STAR amount instead of having that come off initially first.
So
So
my comment would be is that, like you said, there are a lot of people that depend on that. And as a result of that, I could see a lot of people not being able to pay their taxes, which just snowballs. I mean, that's
right. And so, like I said before, NYSBA, New York State School Boards Association, has really been advocating against that. And so legislators, contact your legislators because, and most of our legislators in this area are very supportive of not allowing that to happen.
Now, if we do get some federal money, extra federal money because of the virus and because New York State is so far in debt before the coronavirus even hit, do you see the governor is using that money to offset expenses in order to balance that deficit? That, in other words, is he going to finagle that money to his own benefit so that we really don't get what we're supposed to be getting? You think
yes. That's what the thought is. So right now, that's what he's doing. So that $850,000 number is from the stimulus package in December. So where is that money going to come from next year when we don't have that stimulus?
Right.
And if we get more and he uses and he doesn't, he puts the strings attached to it, where is that money going to come from in 22-23, which is the largest concern everyone has, is that they're going to go back to a gap elimination adjustment scenario where they take money away over years from districts.
Yeah, in the past, I've seen where there's been money allocated. They used to be allocated individually to different programs, whatever, from the state or the federal area government. And then they grouped them together, and then all of a sudden that pot of money got smaller. So you really lost money because they took it away. So
that's absolutely correct. That's our fear.
Yeah. Any board questions? All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Mike, the grade level restructuring, you want to talk about that?
Yep, I'm going to see if I can share my screen. Bear with me for a minute. I'm just gonna make me a co-host and I'll be able to do that.
I just made you co-host. You should be good.
Thank you. Okay, can everyone see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so we're excited to present to the board the reconfiguration proposal of our district, grade level configuration. I'm going to start out with the mission statement. So our mission statement: to educate, inspire, and empower learners to unlock their potential to meet the challenges in an ever-changing world. As you know, this mission statement was a direct result of the strategic planning work that we did a number of years ago. And within our strategic planning, one of the discussions was looking at our grade levels, looking at our district, looking at the experiences of our kids, of our staff, and our community. So if you can remember, back in 2011, when the Savannah Elementary building closed, the 5-6 building, the initial intent was to be able to bring the 6th grade and include the 6th grade in the elementary school. But unfortunately, the footprint of the elementary school was not big enough to be able to house them. So they did have the 6th grade come up to the current middle school, high school right now. So with the addition of the gymnasium at the elementary school and the addition of the 2 new pre-K classrooms, it really made sense to revisit the possibility of bringing our 6th grade back to the elementary school for a grade configuration of a pre-K through 6. Doing that would be aligned to our mission statement and the goals that we have as a district moving forward. So moving on to the reconfiguration, this is for the class of 2033. Hard to believe that our kindergartners that would be starting next year are graduating in 2033. And our goal is to be able to provide the absolute best learning experience for all of our students through the continuum pre-K-12. We took a look at the configuration of the Clyde Elementary being, like I said, grades pre-K through 6. As a result of moving that grade down, I'll say down for now, to the elementary school, it really is not physically moving students. It would be the current 5th grade cohort would not be moving up to the junior high school. They would be staying in that building physically. That would result in the middle school. The junior high school would be grades 7 through 9. And then we would shift the high school, which is currently 9 through 12, to 10 through 12. So really, the biggest change would be the configuration of the elementary as far as what impact that might have on the building and program down there. But the junior high school would be grades 7 through 9, and the high school would be grades 10 through 12 program. So we have done a lot of work behind this reconfiguration recommendation. I'm going to turn it over to Karen Markoff to go over some of the considerations and questions that have come up throughout many, I guess, say the last several years of our strategic planning, our stakeholder groups, conversations with departments over the years, and the struggles and challenges that we had, in addition to these particular questions that have come up in our consideration. So Ms. Markoff, if you can.
Okay, the first 3 questions kind of go together, because what we really were thinking of is, as a result of the curriculum audit, the strategic planning, the special ed audit, and looking at COVID during this past year, we really have been looking at what would best move us forward. What can we learn from everything that's happened and all the research and all the committees that we've had? How can we best move our district forward so it doesn't look like 1970s, but it begins to look more like a 21st century building, and in terms of our instruction and our programming. So based on that, we looked at a lot of data, which I'll share with you in a minute. We looked, and you just had the data presentation in January. You know, our middle school data is pretty much so tanking. It's not where we want it to be at all. 6th grade students are struggling behaviorally and they're struggling academically. So in a lot of the research that I looked at in preparation for this, an awful lot of the research is saying keep 6th graders still in an elementary setting where they don't have 7 classes they're transitioning to, new teachers, new ways of learning. Everybody has a different, if you would, style. And so kids are really struggling with making that change at the adolescent age they're at. So the recommendation is to keep, if we can, the kids at a more appropriate age level as they're going through adolescence and they're struggling, by putting it into a K-6 configuration, and then the 7, 9, and 10, 12. As you know, we've begun some work now in career pathways, and we're really looking at increasing our pathways for students so that we're better preparing for college and careers. To do that, we're looking at implementing some of the 7 through 9 field trips, some soft skills in terms of the skills that would be necessary for a concentrated career pathway down into a middle school, and then transitioning them much more smoothly into that 10, 12, where they're getting not just appetizers, but they're getting really specialized courses that will lead them toward either a position in a job, employment after high school, or to a future college post-secondary career. So we looked at the benefits for our kids. We've looked at definitely the 6th graders will benefit more, we feel, from less change, staying in a more familiar setting for themselves where they know and they have the support of all their teachers, their social workers, their principal. Everything is known to them while they're beginning adolescence. And then the positive recommendation in lieu of the last 1.5 years. We've learned that kids don't learn very well virtually, and we know that kids have created huge gaps in their learning. So we want, in this transition period of the next 2 years, to minimize the number of changes and add whatever consistency we can to be able to target instruction and target achievement, so we can come at it from both the level at which they're behind in, and also at the same time the grade appropriate level at which they would be at. That means we're going to have to be much more targeted, and we're trying to minimize, as I said, transitions for kids in those years, especially the next 2 years. How will students and parents be assisted in this change? The superintendent and I have drafted a letter which would have to go along with a presentation and a request to the New York State to be able to change our configuration. The letter is all set to go to parents, informing them of the change and the rationale for why we did this. We'll be informing parents and students. Superintendent and I talked about having town halls, particularly for the transition grade levels, to make sure we answer any questions that parents might have and students, and that we assist them in the transition, as well as our staff. We intend to go forward with letting our staff know. And again, like the superintendent said, we're really only moving 6th grade down to the elementary building. The other changes are really pretty much so minimal. It'll be more instructional and programmatic, and in transition, it won't be actually any physical setting changes. Will there be transportation issues? We looked at this. We're pretty clear. I mean, if you look at it at a cohort of about 60 kids, if we have 7 buses, how many more kids would that be on a bus for the elementary run? We're confident that we would be able to accommodate that in looking and working with transportation. How will this affect families? It shouldn't affect families very much. If anything, it might help some of our elementary families to have K-6 kids coming home together. If you had an older kid, a 6th grader, it would ensure that they would be home. If you had younger preschool type of children, but it's not really much change for them. I think, if anything, families will have their kids in the elementary building 1 year longer. 7 through 12 will really not change at all. It shouldn't affect families, except for they're going to see that there will be programmatic changes as we continue to move forward at the junior high and the high school. Will it be an additional cost? Superintendent and I have looked at this. There are no additional costs affiliated with this. Do we have the space and desks, equipment in the elementary school to accommodate the change? We do. You'll see later on in this PowerPoint, the elementary principal has provided us with a draft of a possible map where she could accommodate the 6th grade if they stay within her existing building. Will school schedules be affected by the configuration? School time won't be. School schedules, the only thing, I mean, the internal schedules of the day might be a little bit, because when classes are offered, or if anything, at the 7 through 12, we're looking at may actually produce a more flexible scheduling for us as we look at a 7-12 configuration versus the 6-12. How does this affect staff preparedness, certifications, PD? It doesn't affect it at all. Staff preparedness, we will continue to help as the 6th grade teachers, move down to the elementary building. Certifications are the same. There's no change in certification area. And PD, we will make sure the corresponding PD, both at the department level and the grade level, elementary, middle, or high, remains consistent as before. So I think we've tried to hit most of the questions. And so in thinking then about the rationale behind it, we really had to look at that student academic performance in grades 5 through 9. Our middle school principal did a fantastic job last time of sharing with us very candidly and openly and honestly where some of our deficits are in terms of academic progress with our kids in middle school. Looking at that data, and again, it's an abnormal year, but we still have to close the gap in learning. And so we want to come at it with the best way possible. So we're looking at, coming back at looking at sixth graders, if they're a grade or two level below. How are we going to close that gap? By looking at working with them at the grade level at which they're at, just below frustration level, but at the same time coming at them from the grade appropriate level. So we begin to close the gap. We obviously know if we just keep trying to remediate 7 years of schooling, we will never catch up. We'll only fall further behind. One of the things the superintendent and I talked about today, which we have to continue to talk about with the administrators, is the sixth graders who currently are in sixth grade who are struggling. How do we best transition them to seventh grade? Because retention, we want to minimize retentions as we go forward. So we're going to have further dialogue with that as we make the transition for this year's sixth graders moving into a junior high and senior high.
Karen, I'm going to
Space-
interrupt. I'm
Oh,
going to
sure.
interrupt. Sorry, at this point. I just want to reiterate the timing of this. So last year, as we were implementing our strategic plan and implementing our mission and vision, things came to a halt in, as you know, in February and March. This was something that we were thinking about doing and actually trying to implement for this past school year, but obviously with COVID and everything that had happened, the timing wasn't right. But going back to the data, as Ms. Markoff mentioned, this year to see, and as we all shared at the last board meeting, the time to do this it can never be more ripe. With the data that has been presented, with the transitions that are going to be difficult as it is, to be able to keep these students, at least in sixth grade, over at the elementary or current fifth grade cohort, is really, I guess, a blessing in disguise, if you will, and it kind of propelled us to move in this direction sooner. So, thank you, Karen. I just wanted to reinforce that.
Yeah, and the space, class sizes, scheduling flexibility, it's probably going to give us more flexibility at the junior and senior high school level. And that actually is a plus for us because we're in the process of staging and planning for that 7-12 college and career pathway / academies for the junior high and high school. And we know that we've got to put some foundational skill building into 7th and 9th grade, 7 through 9. We're going to increase the field trips, the access to some of our local businesses in 7 and 8. 9th grade, we're looking at having a foundational skill-based program for our students that will also introduce them to the career pathways as we decide upon those. Again, looking at the internships, possible community service, the business and college partners who are working with us to plan opportunities for our kids. I even talked to the elementary principal today, and one of the things we're talking about is it's pretty sure that we're going to have a STEAM pathway. So that's a science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics pathway. So if we have a STEAM pathway, we're looking at the possibility of, even once we get the pathway identified, moving some of the opportunities for possibly robotics or coding down into our elementary program to again feed into the junior high, which again feeds into the senior high, where in 10 through 12, kids will have a really concentrated, hopefully, pathway or academy for their college or career experience. So we're kind of excited about that because I think we are going to need a little more flexibility in terms of scheduling and spacing as we get this ready to begin implementation, hopefully in the 22-23 school year. Adolescent transition readiness, sixth graders really struggled this year in middle school. They've struggled, they're continuing to struggle behaviorally, academically. The multiple teachers, the change in expectations, the immaturity, it's really caused a lot of struggling data for us when we look at it, no matter how hard everybody's trying to support the students in this setting. So we think if they're in a more familiar setting for an additional year while they're going through adolescence, it's going to be able to hopefully ready them more for the junior, senior high. And one of the things we've got to do better at, and we know we do, we're going to work on building stronger transitions between grades 6 and 7 now, and also 9 and 10. So it's much smoother and kids are much more prepared to move into the next grade level or the next grade configuration level. So we're kind of excited about this because we really know that we have the vision. of the end product, which is our kids who are going to be much more college and career ready. They're going to have much more than just appetizers, but again, an actual entree of pathways and background, so that some of them will be employable right out of high school, some of them with certifications already, and some of them ready with multiple years of college credit, so that they can really move forward into some concentrated college courses. So we're kind of excited about our planning at this point. We're not ready yet, but everybody on the pathway committee that we had currently seemed very excited about moving from the traditional sort of 1970s model to really move forward, take the opportunity of what COVID has presented us and move forward to reinventing, if you will, high school to make it much more motivating and engaging for kids. So we're sort of excited. We also looked at, in preparation for today, a lot of historical background, you know, the movement in the 60s and 70s to a 6-8 school model. And I quoted some of the statistical data, which I looked at in reference to that. Then there became a move to K-8 buildings, away from junior high buildings. But you know, no matter what grade level configuration that was changed, there was one thing that came up over and over again, and that's that the grade level configuration is not what makes the difference. What makes the difference is the high quality educational experience. So no matter what your configuration design, it is the instructional level, it is the high expectations, it is the teacher preparation and the teacher really instruction, the cohort, and also the consistency within a building and the culture within the building. It's the lack of transitions, the lack of disruption. All of that really supports the greater success. It's not what grade configuration you have. There was nothing that would tip one way or the other. The ultimate end is the high quality of the educational experience. So using that, I looked at additional data, which I added there for you. I added the assessment data. I mean, I looked at some assessments. Kids basically who remained in a 6th grade setting in an elementary actually scored better than if they moved to a middle high setting. There's something about that middle high transition with adolescents. And again, the move to 7 teachers, the move to different styles, everybody requiring note-taking, requiring a grading in a different way. Kids really struggle in adolescence to do that smoothly. So we're thinking that if we put the 6th graders one more year into the 5th grade building, the elementary building, and if we work on transition, we're going to be able to support our students better. Again, another, research-based piece of the recognizing the characteristics of students at this age, at the 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade age, and how important it is to look at the appropriateness of our building and our supports to be able to reach them and to be able to help support them as they go forward. So ultimately, school grade configuration is important because it does affect the number of schools that kids attend and how they are at the time of each, how old they are at the time of each. So we do have to think about the configuration. We know that. And we have to think about the number of kids in a cohort, which we know our cohorts are not going to change a lot. We're still going to be able to have relatively small class sizes, but we will just be changing a transition from the 5th to 6th grade to really 6th to 7th grade. And then the other part we have to consider was the ESSA, or Every Student Succeeds Act, which ultimately, I hate to say it, but we do worry about our district and accountability. We work at looking at our overall student success data as well as our subgroup data. We have to be aware of it, even though we don't want to keep our total focus on assessments, and that assessments drive what we do. But the reality is we want to be the best school in Upper Wayne County, and we certainly don't want to have low scores that will bring us down. So we're trying to raise our scores and our achievement levels by, we think, a plan of reconfiguration, which is going to help us get there. So critical configuration considerations for any school, no matter what district you're at. Luckily, we don't have to worry about 8 middle schools to bring together or 23 elementary schools, because I can remember when we did that at Syracuse, we had to worry about neighborhood schools. We had to worry about so many equity issues and staffing changes. And thank God we're small enough. It's really a minimal change for us here. Instructional practices, we're going to be able to keep those basically the same. One thing working in elementary will be, as well as the middle school, looking at departmentalization, where we can make interdisciplinary curriculum and planning connections, a team structure, giving teachers time to plan together. I know the elementary building already has PLCs in place, which is the professional learning communities. We'll try to maintain those, working with the principal there of what we can do to support our 6th grade team. Adolescent supports will remain the same. We've got social workers, we've got the other supports, the psychologist. We have intervention programs, we have the RTI/MTSS programs, PBIS. All those supports will still remain in place for our kids no matter what configuration they're in. We'll look at a middle school team design. And I say that with whether it be a 7-9, we'll be looking at it for 7-9 now, and we'll be looking at it with the 5-6 or 4-5-6, or maybe K-6. A lot of middle schools right now are departmentalizing in 5-6, which means the teachers will not have to teach all 4 content areas. They might teach 1 or 2. One teacher might teach math, one might teach science, one might teach English, or they might decide everybody will be teaching English and we'll divide from math, science, and social studies. So that's to be decided yet, but we decide that also whether they would be 6th grade in the middle school or whether they would be 6th grade down in the K-6 building. And school transition, school to school, we have got to do a better job of that, and we know that, and we will make sure that we are better planned and programmed out to move our kids from 6th grade to 7th grade more smoothly, and the same for 9th graders to 10th grade as we work at the career pathways/academies. Operational pieces that you would have to look at: physical space, we have it. Transportation won't be affected. School enrollment numbers. You know, I gave you the projections last time, the 3-year projections of where 2018, 19, and 20 our grade cohorts are based on our beds data. We are hoping to remain stable. We're hoping to bring all of our students back as we transition out of the homeschooling/virtual remote learning type of a situation we're in, with so many parents, even some of them choosing to, not have our kids come physically to our physical settings. So we're hoping to bring everybody back and to not continue to get lower numbers as we go forward. Communication, community support, again, Superintendent Hayden and I have a letter already drafted that will explain this reconfiguration to the community. It has to be a copy sent to the state anyway as we make the proposal to them for the reconfiguration. We will do town halls. We will do whatever it takes to support our students and our families and preparing them for this and making sure they feel really safe, they feel encouraged, and they feel like we're supporting their academic achievement and success. You want to add anything, Mike? And then this is the elementary principal's classroom map. It's her first draft of how she could very easily accommodate the 6th grade within her building. So you can see the 5th and 6th grade would actually have a wing, which is nice because they could possibly departmentalize or share with the wing being established the way it is.
Yeah, and again, just to reiterate, this is just a draft conceptually. It shows that we are able to physically house the approximately 60 would be 6th graders, and looking at the possibility of departmentalizing, if that's the direction we were going to go in. We would want them to be in close proximity to one another as well. And again, thinking about, although the 6th graders would be in that building, we still want to recognize that they are adolescents. They are moving into an upper, at some point they're going to be 7th grade, obviously. So they're more independence, more responsibilities, what's developmentally appropriate for 6th grade in the physical building itself. So that might look differently with their schedules, some of their again, freedoms that they may have that might be a little bit different than the younger grades. So we want to recognize that for 6th grade as well. But at the same time, we do absolutely feel that it will be in a more supportive environment for their success for all the things that we talked about earlier. And students are our future. We go back to the mission and vision, and we have to prepare our students to be successful in an ever-changing world. And this is something that we've thought about for a number of years. We were just not able to do it with the facilities as they were. With the capital project, that certainly, like I said, propelled our ability to make this proposal and move in this direction. Unfortunately, the school closures and the pandemic, on one hand, presented many challenges, but on the other hand, it has brought to the surface the challenges as well, and we need to obviously make decisions moving forward how we could best support our kids, and it just makes sense to do this district-wide. So, questions on the board? Comments?
Not really a question, I have a comment. how soon would you be doing a town hall to get this out there to parents?
Right, so the first thing, well, part of the process that the state education department requires is that we have resolutions that are passed. They are on the addendum agenda for the approval of the grade level configuration. So that's part of the application process. I have been in contact with the state ed department since October. So this is not just a quick process. There's been a lot of back and forth. And so once the resolutions are passed to approve it, that's basically the district's rubber stamp on we're going to move forward with this. That will be submitted to the commissioner. The commissioner will then send the application to the Board of Regents, and they at their May meeting, I think it's going to be their May meeting, they make the official approval from state ed. At that point in time, we should have an indication of if we're able to do this by the state. And then we would really be communicating out. I would say that our targeted audience at first would probably be those students that would be going into 6th grade because they wouldn't be going into the previous, junior high. They're going to stay in that building. And also we would target at first the parents and families of the 9th grade students because they wouldn't necessarily be going into the high school. So we would target it appropriately with the right stakeholder groups. But again, we can't jump the gun on anything because this is a process. It starts with the approval of the board. And then obviously the state will approve it and then we'll communicate out on the timeframes that we can. Good question, Mr. DePaul.
And the other part, just to add, Mike, is we just got the paperwork that we needed just last week from the state. So we were not able to even bring it forward until now.
Yeah, they just released it on the portal. It was traditionally, they release it in beginning of January. They've moved everything to digitally to the portal, we call it. So that just came out the first week of February. So all this as part of the application will be still, they didn't change the deadline date for school districts to do this. It's still March 1st, but they're a month behind on their end. So it's kind of it's a quick turnaround on this. But we're confident that we'll be able to do it.
I just want to reiterate, there's no effect on specials with an additional grade level down at the elementary school.
What do you mean by the arts and music and those would be scheduled and
Right.
we'd be able to accommodate that, yeah.
Mhm.
And one of the other things too that's been brought up, and I've heard many times through conversations with parents is that our 6th grade at the middle school don't always have a lot of opportunities for extracurriculars or clubs or participating in, those types of things. And we feel that they probably will have a little bit more opportunity to participate in those things, at the elementary building with their pre-existing clubs and different things. And we're excited to be able to create new clubs as well, or opportunities for kids to be engaged.
I really like the idea of the 6th grade staying down in the elementary school to be, one more year to feel a bit stronger about themselves and, not going through that puberty in a new environment with new staff and everything else, and having people that they can turn to. I think that's a great stabilizing thing for them for the 6th grade. I like that.
I know there were a lot of people that didn't like seeing the 6th graders go to the big school when the Savannah building closed. I lived through it. I was a teacher in the elementary, and it was tough. I'm glad to see they're going back.
Mhm.
You guys have done a lot of work on this.
Thank you. And it has been a lot of work. It's been a lot of thought put into this. This is something that unfortunately was halted our planning for this last year with the closure. But yeah, we're excited. We're excited for the opportunity to do something a little bit different. But again, it makes sense. You can look at all the research and thank you, Ms. Markoff, for your research in that you did spend a lot of time. But at the end of the day, it's so important to realize whatever the research is saying, right? Because those of you that have been in education for a long time have seen this pendulum, right? The pendulum comes and it goes back, and you're going to see configurations and different theories, and the research is showing this. But at the end of the day, two things. Does it meet the needs of our district, of our kids, right? So no matter what you're calling it, what configuration, It's the instruction that's happening in the classroom. It's the
Mhm.
supports that we have in place. It's, limiting the transition. So all those things that we brought up tonight are really important. And I'm excited to move forward this. I think we all are. It'll be, certainly a little bit of a change. And I know maybe that the current fifth graders right now that may have been, looking forward to going into the middle school. But I'll tell you, my gut instinct is most fifth graders are a little anxious about going into sixth grade at the big school. And they're probably going to be, maybe not saying it, but relieved that they're going to be able to stay in that building for 1 year. So.
Okay. Anything else from the board? Any other questions, comments? All right, thank you very much. Thank you.
Yep.
Nice job. Mike, do you have anything from central administration?
I do. I want to just also share with the board that we have really been looking at ways to try to increase our in-person instructional time, particularly at the elementary school. As you know, we are in a hybrid model right now, every other day for most grades. Pre-K and kindergarten are every day. But our goal has been and continues to be able to increase in-person learning. So we are looking at the guidelines of Department of Health. And as you know, right now, our biggest issue has been capacity in the classrooms and to be able to maintain the social distancing of wearing masks and 6 feet apart. The guidelines do permit students to be less than 6 feet apart. They will still be masked, but there would have to be a barrier. We are really, really excited to find out that the price points for those plastic polycarbonate barriers have come down tremendously. So at the beginning of the year, when all the companies were trying to rip off the schools and they had a very high demand and school districts were paying probably 6-7 times the price of what they would normally be, we as a small district were not able to afford those polycarbonate barriers. It would have been, I'm sure, more than $100,000 minimally. So we had to really do the social distancing with 6 feet apart. Because the price has come down so much, we are looking at the possibility of being able to purchase enough plastic barriers, the polycarbonate barriers, which are required to the materials in New York State, to be able to consolidate our classrooms again at the elementary school, where we don't have to have them split up and we can have 20 kids or 18 kids back in a class. That will certainly open up our staffing flexibility, and it just makes sense from an instructional standpoint. I know the teachers, the conversations I had today with almost all the teachers in the building, they are very, very excited to be able to have an opportunity to have all their kids in one class as opposed to having to, split them up half the class and then interact with them and having assistants or aides supporting in the other room. So something that we are getting the information. We're in our fact finding right now, pricing things out. We took measurements today, looked at the number of desks we would need and what this would entail. But we think we can do it. So I'll update the board on where we are in that process, but it's going to give us more flexibility in the building. Particularly one of the biggest things that you'll see if we're able to do this is that gymnasium, which we're holding our 5th grade classes in there right now in the gym on both sides. If we're able to consolidate and have these barriers, we'll be able to have more kids in the other classrooms, and that'll open up the gym space. I know our phys ed teachers will be very happy with that. Our kids will be very happy, and I know that will certainly support our athletic program. I'm sure Mr. Lang would be very happy with that as well. So that's really good information, good news coming to meet our goal of trying to get kids in more frequently. And also, we're looking at transportation to be able to help bringing all kids back every day. It may not be for a full day, but if we can work that out with transportation, we'll be able to get back to at least how we started off the school year. So all good things coming.
Mike, if that were the case where we could get most, if not all the kids, accommodate them in the classroom, will parents still have the option the rest of this year to have virtual or home instruct?
Yeah, so we are able to accommodate all the students if they were all in person. They have the choice now of being in person or virtual. We certainly encourage families, if they're thinking about reconsidering brings to their students back to in-person, we certainly encourage them to do that. We've had a number of families and students that have returned. I'm sure that Mrs. Kelly or Mrs. Lam or Dr. Pollock will probably speak on behalf of the number of kids that are coming back. So certainly, yeah, we'll be able to accommodate whoever wants to be in person.
We have 17 kids we brought back last week, Mike.
17. So it's starting to happen. We're starting to see kids come back. They're realizing, that their chances of success are certainly greater, and the principals have made accommodations and extra help through the Eagles Landing and after school time.
Yeah.
It's a step in the right direction for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
How are we doing with transportation?
Specifically,
we're able to get the kids on the bus.
Yep. So we're using
without
currently
overloading or.
Yep. This right now wouldn't affect a number of kids on a bus. So if we continue with our hybrid model, it won't change the number of kids. However, the Department of Health is suggesting that, based on the data and based on the research, there has not been much spread at all, community or school-wide spread. So that data is certainly supporting the fact that, being able to bring more kids on a bus may be happening sooner than later. As long as they're masked, you have the Department of Health and you have that says students, should be able to. It doesn't say must, and the CDC has some different language, but the Department of Health is really looking closely at the data, and they're not seeing a lot of spread happening. So I'm thinking again that we're probably going to see some changes coming down that will be more flexible for school districts to be able to accommodate transportation and eventually in the classroom.
Yeah. Okay. Susan, do you have anything else you want to talk to us about tonight?
Just have to unmute here. Just a couple of things in addition to the budget work that we've been doing. You will see on the agenda tonight, the comptroller's audit has been completed and on the agenda for approval. And also we did a couple of RFPs. We did one, you'll hear from Dave about the RFP for auditing services. And then we did another RFP for fitness center equipment. And so we're working on those. And lastly, we're gathering data for the upcoming negotiations.
Okay. Thank you. Building level. Why don't we start with Katie?
School, we've faced a challenge this year with maintaining high levels of enrollment in pre-K and kindergarten. This is not unique to us. Districts around the region have been facing this challenge. Some families are opting for remote learning, others have opted for homeschooling, and some, because it's not a compulsory, neither are compulsory grades, have just chosen not to enroll their children yet in school. So in trying to close that gap and think about, how we can make that better for next year, we've tried to get really proactive and creative in advance of the year. Registration opens on March 10th, and we've been working closely with Mrs. Fisher, our pre-K coordinator, as well as with Ms. Erth, our public information coordinator. And so we're trying to think of ways we can advertise and how we can also adjust our screening processes so that everything is smooth and we are just getting more kiddos enrolled in those two grades for next year. We held our third annual Super Bowl and to collect food for our local food pantries. Students and staff were invited to bring in non-perishable food items and place them in the box of the team that they hope would win the Super Bowl. And so our final score was 233 to 145, with Kansas City taking the win for Clyde-Savannah. So in total, we'll be donating 378 food items to our local food pantry. Miss Kelsey and I have been doing our second annual Eagle Connection calls home to all families to see how the year is going for them. And it's been really amazing to hear how parents are truly pleased with the work that teachers are doing. The teachers are doing a tremendous job, and that's what we're hearing time and again in these calls. We've also heard some ideas for improvement that are really important too, because we want to continue to partner with families to enhance the student experience. And so being able to connect with them it's always a priority for us, and we're honored to have the opportunity to be chatting with them. And finally, we've been continuing to really try to focus on acknowledging students for the great things that they do. And we were excited that 108 students were nominated for a golden ticket this past quarter, which brings us to a total of 344 nominations so far this year for demonstrating CS Rocks behavior. And a prize drawing was held this quarter again, and 14 students, both hybrid students and fully virtual students, received some pretty great prizes, everything from drawstring bags and water bottles to Bluetooth speakers and tablets. And that was through the support of the 21st Century Grant.
Nice.
Very nice. Jen?
Hi, friends. Where are we at the middle school? Still riding this fun roller coaster ride, as we all know. I will tell you that the Eagles Landing program that we did get started at the beginning of January has had excellent attendance. We have had an average of about 11 students additionally in the building per day, per grades, which has been fantastic. Students who have attended the new Eagles Landing program all showed some progress in some classes, but there are some failing grades. So we are still working on helping them to be more successful. But in the little bit of time they were with us, there was some major improvements. Unfortunately, our failure rates are pretty consistent. I did just finish studying report cards and taking a look at things. I did meet independently with some students, high-risk students and students who did an amazing job to let them know. I made some phone calls home to celebrate growth, lots of positive shout outs to parents, and then also to parents to kind of look into how can I assist them if it's virtual, how can I help you if you want to come back, and just looking at what are we doing and what can we continue to do to help your kids be successful. That also was part of our data meetings this week, really taking a look with my grade level teams to figure out where we are, if we have the right kids identified, if there's any more kids we need to identify, and what we're doing again for our students who are high achieving. Today we had our faculty meeting with some extra help from our friend Joe DeWolf, our social worker. He did do a little piece on social emotional anxiety for staff and students, which was just a great refresher as to where we all are at this time. We are going to be hosting our honor roll assembly. We have about 64 students total this year, which is definitely down from years past, but we are just continuing to celebrate their success during this adverse time. That's it for me, friends.
Okay, thanks, Jen. Dr. Pollock?
Again, good evening, everyone. Kind of similar to what Mrs. Kelly said, we actually had a combined middle school, high school faculty meeting today. One of the things that we're looking at the high school level, we're obviously continue to recognize students who have done exceptionally well. That information obviously will be pushed out by Amanda into the various newspapers. It'll be published on our district Facebook page and along with the upcoming newsletter. There was some information that we submitted. Currently analyzing the data that our second quarter is complete. Looking at report cards so that we can try to adjust some instruction moving forward for the remainder of the year. A part of today was spent analyzing some of the potential summer school numbers that we could be looking at as far as each grade level and specific content for students. We will also be mailing out at-risk letters to parents, letting them know exactly where their children stand at the end of the second quarter and really encourage them to stay after and join us for any of the after-school review we have on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, or any day of the week if they don't require transportation, and even from our noon to 3 during our virtual days. We've had some students coming in. We've had 5 or 6 coming in on a given day from 12 till 3. And many of those students, like Mrs. Kelly said, are starting to get caught up. So we're seeing some progress with that. Also brainstorming some ideas with students and staff, as Mrs. Markov said, regarding the career pathways. trying to see exactly what that would look like. And when we come back from break, we'll start looking at the creation of a master schedule. Now that we have all of our student requests that are now currently in School Tool, we'll start looking at that. And as far as seniors, one of the things we're looking at is trying to get things back to somewhat normal and some good opportunities for seniors, as obviously it's their senior year, it's real special. So we're going to be looking at doing the ice skating. We did get approval with social distancing, the wearing of masks, and a limited number of students on the bus to have ice skating occur in Rochester. So we're looking at doing that. So we did get the blessing from the Wayne County Department of Health. So that's really exciting.
Okay. Larry.
Good evening, everybody. I hope everyone's doing well tonight. The boys are losing by 17 at this point into the fourth quarter. The girls are up by 7 with 2:30 left for those that they're encouraged by sports. So on that note, basketball season's got off to a great start. The first day with the video of the games, we had everything working. At 1:30, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, got down to the gym and it went AWOL for about 2 hours. I want to thank Nora. I want to thank Amanda for all their hard work that day, because it was, the word I used that day was a nightmare, because it just wouldn't, I could not figure it out. It was so many loopholes that we did not know about. So Huddle will be coming this week. We'll have all that ready to go once we get back from break. Everybody that has the Huddle cameras are having no problems with that on YouTube, so we should be all set. With the Wayne County Athletic Association and in conjunction with superintendents, we're not having spectators at this time. This was due to maintenance and staff issues in most schools, school districts, trying to figure out the social distancing guidelines. And we were trying to make sure that everybody's safe in the gymnasium. Tonight's the first time we had both the JV and varsity in the gym. Everything has gone very well. Anybody that's live streaming has seen me squirting the gun, not the gun, but the antiseptic stuff into the bleachers once the kids got up and went into their areas to make sure everything was clean for our players and everything. That went very well tonight. At the athletic council meeting today, fall 2 season will start on March 1st. All leagues will be completed. Their schedule will be completed by April 23rd. Sectionals will conclude on May 2nd. That is the last day for sectionals. Fall 2 season includes volleyball, football, and competitive tier. With that being said, we are still working on the possibility of having modified sports. And obviously this is due to gym space in both buildings and being able to provide and have times for everybody to be able to practice and playing games. We're still continuously working on, hopefully we'll have better answers by middle of next week, the beginning of after break. Spring sports will start on April 19th. The season end date still has not been discussed. We're waiting on the state education department to decide whether or not they're having Regents exams. If there are no Regents exams, that's going to allow us to extend our season. There are no state championships this year. We're trying to provide our spring sports with as much playing time as possible since they did not have a season last year. Into the community schools, which is another part of my job now. Amanda, Nora, Aaron, and I met this week to start a link on our school community tab that's on our webpage to provide information to our community members with the opening of our facilities with the swimming pool and a fitness center. Once we have a little bit closer to a concrete date of when that's going to happen, we are going to provide a survey to our community to see what type of opportunities they would like to see at in the community part of our building. So that's all I have for you tonight. Thanks for having me.
Okay, thanks, Larry. Chris, how's special ed going?
Oh, good evening. Everybody is frozen.
Yeah, everybody's frozen.
Yeah, I had that for a brief moment myself there too, but it looks like everything's back.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start with an update from preschool. We continue to look at ways to educate our own preschool students by expanding what we do in special education within our own building for our own preschool students. There are many advantages to this. It gives our staff an extra year to work with kids and get to know them. Helps with the transition to kindergarten. And it also serves as a revenue source for the district. Teachers and providers are continuing to come up with creative and inspiring ways to engage with students. This is one of the bright spots of the pandemic. It's not just in person anymore. It's in person, virtually, in hallways, after school, during flex time at the middle and high school. I was walking in the elementary school hallway last week, and in the middle of the hallway was one of our speech pathologists, Dana Bever. She had set up a mobile, that's where her office is at times during the day, where she got an outlet and a cart, and that serves as her desk. And she, because the space is being used. So just that creativity is inspiring to our students, and inspiring to everybody. This year, we are empowering the special ed department by moving all the budget and all the annual review preparation to online platforms. This significantly increases efficiency and productivity by eliminating hundreds, if not thousands, of sheets of paper, and allows staff to significantly increase flexibility in completing their work. An area that we're looking at for growth, last month I mentioned that we're working to keep kids in classrooms more and more often with creative ways to do therapy. We're also striving to keep kids in programs in the district. I've heard many parents say that the kids that play football in the backyard with the other kids, but go to program out of district, that really does a disservice to them. So we're always looking at ways to keep kids in district and bring them back when possible. Over the last 3 years, we've reduced the number of students attending programs out of district by about 15%. That's all I've got.
Okay. I really applaud you for working in that direction of, excuse me, of keeping kids, you know, the students in our district as much as possible. I know it's not always possible, but I think you're absolutely right. You're taking them away from their peer group, and you say the play group after school, and it's really important for them to be able to be with their peers. So again, thank you very much for trying to do that. Appreciate
Thank you. I'm glad to do it.
Karen, do you have anything else you want to talk about tonight?
Just a couple things. I first want to thank, honestly, the board and the superintendent for his leadership. As you can tell, I rock and roll. And so I got a lot of initiatives. Holly said to me, don't start anything else between now and the end of the year. You know, just to look, summer school, we had our first meeting. The superintendent and I are looking at possible co-serve with other districts to make it more economically feasible for us to be able to meet the needs of all our kids in K through 12 if we need to close the gap this summer. We certainly don't want a virtual summer school. We'd like to be able to have a physical summer school where we can include the kids and bring them in. I have another meeting coming up the week we come back. I've been working with the assistant superintendents. Superintendent's been meeting with the superintendent. So we're in hope to have some conclusive evidence, at least about a possible co-serve for us early by March 1st, if we're really lucky, hopefully, so we can begin our actual summer school planning. Career pathways, we had our first meeting internally to begin to brainstorm with staff. I will be inviting businesses, local businesses into the second meeting, which will be the week we come back from vacation. I have one board member who I'm inviting who expressed interest, and we have one community member. So our next meeting will really focus on looking at the businesses internally within Clyde-Savannah, 3 at first, who really can talk to us about their employment opportunities as well as their soft and skill and long-term certification, graduation expectations of staff so that our kids would be able to be employable. So we want to learn more about local businesses so we can support them. So that will be our next meeting. And again, it's the week we come back from vacation. Curriculum Council has met. We're focusing on increasing literacy and reading and writing. I've noticed that kids are not doing a lot of actual reading and writing to the level that they need to during this pandemic. So I ran it by the grade level leaders and the Curriculum Council, and they agreed that it would not be too much to ask teachers to begin to doing some writing or some reading every day in class. So we're sure that we are working on enhancing the reading skills and also the writing skills of our students. So we're moving on that. I also have all of the council is engaged in a RIC writing across the content area workshop. We've had 2 workshops on that. We'll have a third one coming up March 18th. And I will be doing additional professional development in writing and differentiated instruction for writing across content areas at our next council meeting, which is March 10th. The other thing we have is scheduling. As Dr. Pollack said, we'll begin junior, senior high school scheduling, looking at it the week we come back from vacation. And website, I've been working with Amanda on the website. And so for the Board of Education, if you would like your page to look a little differently and maybe your pictures on the page or a narrative, we invite you to share that with us and we'll build the Board of Education page out also. And I just want to now reach out and let Holly tell you about one venture, about a newsletter and a new venture we're taking with the superintendent. Holly, you're on.
Thanks, Karen. So I do have a new venture that is taking place, but first I want to give you a little bit of context and give you a little bit of background with kind of a personal story. So it won't take too many minutes. So if you just bear with me, and thank you in advance for your time. So back in 2008, my husband, Peter, convinced me to move to the very small town of Savannah, New York.
Yes.
And I remember coming here and thinking, where in the world am I? I also had come from a really small town, and I willingly went along with this, and we arrived here with our 6-month-old daughter. And I was very curious to find out these communities of Clyde and Savannah. And as we attended different events, football games at the high school, I was shocked and amazed because I truly believe that the blood in your veins does run purple and gold. This community had more passion and more pride than probably any couple of communities that I've ever seen. I was amazed, and I was lucky enough to become a part of that in a couple different ways through the years, first as a board member, and then as a teacher, and now as my new role as an administrative assistant. We were thinking of what could be a way to sort of invite everyone from the community in without actually inviting you in. We feel really strongly about that community connection and wanting our school family to really be a part of the community, and our community to really be a part of our school family. So that's where this idea of kind of a supplementary newsletter was born. I'm hoping that you'll find it interesting and informative and enjoyable as Golden Eagles. And I'm really proud to be able to collaborate with so many of our administrators, teachers, and students, as well as some community members on this project. Amanda Airth, our public information coordinator, has been helping me with this, and we have some really great contributions. So I hope that you'll enjoy it. Look for it coming out the first week in March. This will be one of 3 issues that we publish this year. And if it goes well and everyone enjoys it, we will consider extending it to the future. So thank you.
Looking forward to reading that.
Yes.
Thank you. Nora?
Good evening, everyone.
You are.
So the best news is that we had ordered 275 new Chromebooks for students last spring, and I received an email yesterday that they have finally arrived. Everything had been back ordered with COVID. So they have arrived at the warehouse, and we'll get those pretty soon. So that's fantastic news. And at this point, we probably won't even have to necessarily hand them out this spring, but we'll be all set for the fall. If we need to, we can, but what we want to do is start thinking about how we're going to allocate those to our students next year. So what we're thinking, especially with the new reorganization, is give students a Chromebook in 10th grade and have that same Chromebook stay with the student for 3 years. And same thing with our 7 through 9, and then our 3 through 6 grades. So we're going to kind of talk a little bit more about that as an IT team in terms of how we want to get those out. But that was the really good news that we just received yesterday. The area that I am working on most this spring is around security compliance. So I have a meeting in another couple of weeks. I put together a cybersecurity incident response team. As you know, one of our local districts has been in the news quite a bit lately with their malware attack. So I am extremely grateful that is certainly not us. We are in very good shape. we do regular security checks, and Kelly Echtel, who's the director of director of technology, not transportation, director of technology for Boces, has been sending out some regular reminders to all of the component districts in terms of what we need to do as a district to make sure that that doesn't happen to them. She recently sent out notification that said, you know, they're still under investigation, but once they've completed all of that work, they'll be able to give us some more specifics to ensure that this is not something that's going to happen to one of our other districts. But that's certainly an area of focus for me moving forward. And I'm constantly looking at the NIST guidelines and security implementation moving forward. Additionally, I have been able to get into more classrooms, which is something that I absolutely love doing. So I'm working through my observations, and it's something that I miss, and I miss seeing our kiddos. So I've been trying to make a point of getting out more and seeing our students and popping into lunch. Jen has kept me on the Eagle Assist team if our middle schoolers need any help this spring. So that's something that I love doing. I am also beginning to look at all of our software renewals for next year and just keeping in mind any of our budget constraints, although we're in pretty good shape. I am looking at a lot of the data around what programs we are using, and if it's something that we're not getting a lot of buy-in from staff, that won't be a program that we continue to use next year. And then just an area of growth for me would be mostly around working more with the community and community groups in terms of digital literacy. And that's just an area that I want to continue to pursue this spring, moving forward with that. But we're in very good shape.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Jeff, how are things on buildings and grounds?
Very good. Good evening, everyone. Jack, happy birthday. So as Andrew had mentioned, the boilers are now on at the high school. I will tell you that the new boiler room is really nice. I know it's not something that the public's going to get out there and see or be amazed at, but I will tell you it's nice and bright. It's spacious. It's going to be very nice to work on equipment there. As a guy from maintenance, I love that room right now. It's really nice. It's a good thing. So we turned the boilers on Tuesday, January 26th. And that night at 8:30, I got an alarm on my phone telling me that we had lost pressure in the boiler system, which was good because I got an alarm. So we were able to know there was an issue. Within 15 seconds of me getting that text message, Day Automation called me, who had been monitoring the boiler operation through the day. And they were aware of their problem, told me that they thought there was a catastrophic leak, which obviously didn't sound good. I asked me if I could get somebody there quick. I called John Murray to respond quickly, thinking we're gonna have water gushing everywhere. So John was on his way. Andrew got a call from Day Automation, and between Andrew and then we got Roy from Landry Mechanical, Roy Wilson, he was headed out to see as well. Andrew got a hold of Alex Schrader, sent him over, and myself, and Don Benowitz from Day Automation with there. Well, he's 45-minute drive for him. Roy had a 30-minute drive, but we all got there around a little bit after 9, found that a temporary hose connection had burst, got the water shut off, got everything fixed. It was just great that everybody responded. There was no delay. It was just really nice. What a great thing that everybody just dropped everything in the middle of in the evening like that and made their way to the school to take care of that. So along those lines, the alarm system is great. We don't have that on the old system. It's nice having that on our new boiler system, that if something happens like that, we're getting alarms. I'm working right now to tie that same technology to our sump pumps. We have about 9 sump pumps in the high school, middle school complex. And if any of those, we run into an issue at 2 o'clock in the morning, those are audible alarms within a building, would never know if the basement would be getting flooded. So I'd like to do that and tie that same type of thing so that if we ever do get, we always have water in this building, so it'd be great to get that alarm. So Other than that, next week is break week. We're going to work on floors in a high school and a elementary school, get some floors polished and try to make the place look better. That's it.
Okay. Thank you. Is Sigourney here? She was here. Okay. She comes back, we'll talk to her. Any board member comments at this point? Any committee reports?
Yeah, I have one, Dick, for the audit committee.
Yep.
The audit committee met this evening and we reviewed a couple of items actually. First item is that every 5 years, the school has to engage the services of a new external auditor, accounting firm. So the time was up again, and Boces assists our process in soliciting the bids for the school, all area schools. We reviewed 5 proposals, and as it turned out, our current firm, let's see here.
Crowley
and Halloran. They actually were the low bidder, and we're pretty happy with their services. So we'll make a recommendation to the board for the March meeting for their approval for the next time period. And there was another issue that was discussed briefly. Apparently the school has been enrolled in some sort of I don't know, I want to say a program, but a decision or something to automatically how do I want to say it, to assign a tax exempt status to like any solar or wind project that comes into the area. And we made the decision that we would opt out of that to at least give ourselves the ability to kind of review and consider those projects as they come through, rather than just automatically not have that decision or recourse. So that item will also be presented to the board for the March board meeting. And that's about it for audit committee.
Okay. Thanks, Dave.
Yeah.
Okay, policy.
Okay, Pam?
We do have policies again tonight. The first one is board self-evaluation, which we did not do last year, and I'm not sure we did it the year before. We changed the policy. It was kind of ambiguous as to when it would get done, led us to believe it was kind of at the end of the calendar year. So we have changed it to be more towards the end of the school year. So everybody on the board will be getting a paper copy of the board self-evaluation by the 1st of May. It gets returned to Dick by the 20th. And then he and Doreen will get it all compiled, and we have to meet in executive session in June to go over it. So that is a change on that policy that we did. Another one we had a question on was the extra classroom activity fund policy 5520. That one says that funds left in a class account, if not used, like a class graduates, their money goes into the student council account. And the question came up, did we want to, because some of that account is money that each individual student raised to like go on the senior trip or something. Did we want that to go to a sibling? Did we want it returned to the kid? Did we want whatever? And we didn't want to make that decision. So I'm asking you guys to go to the website and look at 5520 and give one of us a call, myself, Dick, Lynn Carnevale, and Sue DeSanto. Give one of us, an idea of what you're thinking. I know Susan gave or commented that some, some school districts, they allowed the class to hang on to that money to use towards the class reunion. My question would be how long? And if that's something we want to do, then a length of time needs to be put into the policy. It's kind of an ambiguous policy. I think it needs to be cleaned up. So we did pull it. We're going to talk about it at our next meeting, but please give us your input. Okay, 5520. The
And
rest we're pretty much.
And we also have an opinion from our external auditor, which will be shared with the committee as well.
Great, great.
Good. Okay. Anything else, Pam?
No, that's all for policy.
Okay. Sigourney, are you here?
Yes, I am.
Hey. You're on.
All right. So for February, not much has really gone on. It's really been a standstill, but I can speak for January. We have just finished up our midterms and we're just going along with it. And luckily sports are opening up and there's not much spirit days going on at the moment because of the lack of participation last time. But other than that, that is pretty much the summary of what's going on right now.
I've been following the swim team, and they've got some
Oh, yes?
Yeah, they've been getting some pretty good coverage in the Finger Lakes Times.
Oh, yes. I've seen pictures of myself as well as teammates and how we're doing, and it's great that we get published.
Yes, it is.
And that people in the community can see.
Yeah, it's great.
We have sectionals tomorrow.
Good luck.
Thank
luck,
you.
Stig.
Thank you.
Hopefully you're going to be able to swim in our pool before the end of the year.
Yeah.
I'm hoping so. I'm hoping so.
Excellent. Okay.
If Sigourney didn't mention it, she already got accepted to RIT.
Yeah.
And hopefully
Congratulations.
she'll be swimming at RIT next year. We're working on it, her and I.
great.
So hopefully we can get her to
Great.
swim at RIT.
Excellent. Do you want to tell people what program you got accepted to, Sigourney?
The combined bachelor's and master's physician assistant program.
Yeah. Excellent.
Wow.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Well done. Well done.
Thank you.
Okay, this brings us to our public forum. And in the interest of meeting efficiency, the public comments should be kept to the Board of Ed 3-minute guideline and not to exceed 30 minutes total. Is there anybody out there in the community that has a comment to make?
So what we'll do for this in the question and answer feature on here, they would just have to state their name and address if they'd like to speak, and then we'll have Amanda Arith unmute them for a period of 3 minutes maximum.
Okay, any comments from anybody? All right, seeing none. Could I have a motion to approve the consent agenda items?
I'll make a motion.
Yeah,
I'll second.
Sue,
I will abstain from E6.
yep. Okay. Any discussion? All right, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Say nay. Motion carries. All right, this brings us up to questions from the audience. The public and all the other stakeholders in our children's education are invited to ask the Board of Education President and/or Superintendent to answer any questions or provide clarifying statements about the evening's board agenda items. Do we have anybody out there that has any questions? Okay, seeing none, could I have a motion to go into executive session, please?
I'll make a motion.
For Mr. Dram, just have to indicate for what purpose.
Oh, I'm sorry. For F, the medical, financial, credit, and employment history of a particular person or corporation, or matters leading to the appointment or removal of a particular person or corporation. Who seconded that motion?
Lynn.
Okay. 249. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
I will send a link, a separate link to board members for executive session. And then after that, we'll come back into this link that Ms. Erith has already provided.
All righty. Yep, thanks, everybody. Good night. We're missing Dave, right?
Yeah.
He was in executive session, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awful.
He's on.
Yeah, okay. Call a motion to adjourn, please.
I'll make a
I'll
motion.
make the motion.
Yeah.
Jack and Sue, let's
Sue.
go.
Ew. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Bye.
Motion carried. I was gonna say good night and drive safely, but you're already home.
I'm not.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Good night. Good night.
Please. Hi, Jack.
Hello, Dick.
Happy birthday.